Bonsoir tout le monde, bienvenue à cette
Good evening,
réunion
everyone, and welcome to this meeting of December 12th. Without further ado, then, the City of Dieppe recognizes that the land on which it operates is part of the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship that the Mi'kmaq jointly developed and signed with the British Crown in the 18th century. These treaties did not deal with the surrender of land or resources, but in fact recognize Mi'kmaq title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between the parties. And we'll now give the opening word. Dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We will call the meeting to order and ask for confirmation of quorum. I believe that everybody is present, including Councillor Lantaigne, who is remote, but here. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to everybody here in the crowd. Well, okay, so that wasn't funny. And are there any conflicts of interest? No conflicts of interest. And to adopt the agenda, been moved and seconded on the question. No questions. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. Carried. The agenda is carried as presented, which brings us to item 7, presentations, inquiries, and petitions. 7.1, inquiries by council members, inquiries of the Kodiak Regional RCMP. And we have the privilege and the opportunity to have with us this evening the big boss himself, Superintendent Benoit Jolette, for this last meeting of the year. Good evening. I missed you, so I gave Ms. Farah the rest of the week off. No, it's always very pleasant to see you here, and it was a good time to come this evening and to present something that we presented to the CRPA last week. It's a brief PowerPoint to get to know us. And I should have done this with new council members. I should have done it earlier rather than later, but it's just to show you what we do, who we are. And it's not, we're not only patrol cars that you see every day or the first responders. So if you give me a second, and I'll try not to be too long, but I'll go through my presentation and we can perhaps reserve your questions for the end. I just prepared this today. Ms. Godbout heard it in English last week, so I'm going to present it in French this time. So we are the RCMP, we are the National Police Force, but we are here to work for the residents of the Greater Moncton area. We still have to follow the national framework of the national RCMP, and there are some items that we focus on throughout Canada. For example, we want to make sure we ensure a safe, equitable workplace, address systemic racism, advance reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, support modern policing, improve accountability, transparency, and conduct. These are very general terms, but we apply them on a daily basis in our own workplaces. The core values of the RCMP include, or these are core values that we learn starting on the first day at the academy. And I'm not going to read through them. I will send you a copy of the um, presentation. But so starting on the very first day at the academy, we're told this and it's repeated, it's drilled into us. It's something that we put in our baggage and we keep for the rest of our career. We have to show honesty, integrity, professionalism, compassion, accountability, and respect. There are other values as well, but these are the ones that are our fundamental values. And currently, we're working to modernize them. So more modern values will be they will be modernized, but the same values will be just updated. So the resources, well, we have the frontline police officers and municipal employees. As people might not be aware of this, but we have a 147 positions as police officers, but we have over 180 employees, municipal employees at the RCMP, people who work not only in our own building on Main Street, but also those who work in the different centers. And I'll explain all of that to you. There are also some support units, provincial support units, people who work elsewhere, but they come and give us a helping hand if there are very critical elements, if we need more resources, and I'll explain that in a little bit. The patrollers, these are the ones we see the more frequently. These are the ones in the marked police cars. They work 24 hours a day. They're on the road. All RCMP members start as patrollers. They start working on the front lines, typically in uniform, unless there's a specific need to send them to Quebec or Ontario in specialized sections. But the majority start on general duty, and they uh, respond to 100 to 200 calls per day, which gives thousands of calls per year here in the Kodiak region. These are these are calls that can include calls for service to patrol, for example, counselors or people will send us information on certain street corners where they want a more police presence to control speed or such. But there could also be more severe crimes, including domestic violence, robberies, and homicides. The first face that you see when you call the police usually are the patrol officers. And then connected with those are the integrated the further investigation teams. We call them the FIT teams. And once the initial work is done on the scene of an event, that if you need further investigation, we'll give it to this further investigation team. Now, this would include fraud, sexual assaults, domestic violence, for example, and they are currently working on the follow-up. They're responsible for all of our in custody prisoners. Earlier in the COVID, we had to keep everybody in their cells. Um, but in spite of the fact that we've returned to a more normal existence, we weren't able to bring everybody to the courts, which is something we used to do daily, but they're still in custody. And it's a lot of work. It's certain mornings we have up to 15 people in custody, depending on the severity of the case. So this is a very important work, and we're really eagerly awaiting the new building in order to have the proper tools to do this. Because if you've seen where we do this work, you know what I'm talking about. But we make do. And then there's the callback unit and the front desk. We have police officers who are at the front desk. So when people come in to the building on Main Street, they're going to see a police officer, and quite often people just need information, or if there has been a crime committed, if there's no video surveillance or no witnesses, if there's been, for example, a theft from your backyard, these calls are often sent to these officers, and we try to call back within 24 hours as much as possible. We had a little bit of delay in the past. But we've put more focus on this, and so we're now approaching the 24 hours, because when we deal with a police officer, usually it's because something's happened. You get up in the morning, and I mean, you know, my shed was broken into, so what do I do now? Now, if there's an um, if there's a crime, but there hasn't been video surveillance or there hasn't been any witnesses, the people come to us to the front desk or we have to call back. So if the theft if is in process, then we try and go to the scene. But in this case, if it's an hour later or 15 minutes later or a day later, we try and make sure that everybody gets a call back, everybody who's reported an event, an incident. Now, the community policing unit, the mission is to provide community policing services within the Kodiak region with the objective of reducing victimization. Currently, a lot of our work is uh, because of social ills in the Moncton area. But as we saw in between Dieppe and Riverview, I mean, we're not safe from this either. People do move, people do come to our mission, and people start so these community policing officers start to get to know the youth in the schools, for example. And I only have two people on the unit currently, but we're going to add four more. But because we need more, visibility. We need to manage everything that's going on in the community. And I've also already seen the positive side of having certain officers going to the high schools on a regular basis just to chat with the youth, to have a presence there. And these officers like chatting with the youth. They like being present. They make presentations and we do it every day. We have career days in the schools and it's given good results. But we're uh, everything changes continually and we're always looking for good ideas to find out what people want and how we can proceed. So here you just see the type of work that this unit does. There's we've given presentations to different organizations, not-for-profits and community organizations, but there's always new uh, that come in and we get involved with them. And then we have the general investigation unit section. These are the most experienced investigators. They investigate major crime, for example, shootings or serious sexual assaults, including crimes involving children. Recently, we had some historic cases. There was a professor uh, there was a shooting uh, by a former professor. It was this team that looked after that. I assigned certain officers from the general patrol to this section as well, because it's a section um, that has to follow up and people expect results. So then there's a crime reduction unit as well. The first peop the first patrollers you'll see are the ones in the marked cars, the patrol cars, but there is the crime reduction unit that are continually working on those that cause the most harm within the community. They work in unmarked vehicles, any vehicle that you can see around town, and they work on offenses such as the sale and possession of illegal drugs. But if there's a specific problem, for example, there's one area where there are a number of thefts. They can be theft from a backyard, but with our analytics, we can really target a certain street between that number between this time and that time, and that's where the person will go next, so we can be there to catch them in the act. So with analytics, we can really target crime and hotspots. Now, I don't know if my colleague has talked to you about this team. It's a new team. in partnership with the province. It's a new unit.
Il y a 7 unités
There are
régionales,
7
c'est tous les
regional
corps
units,
policiers municipaux
and
à grande
all of the
envergure
municipal
partenariat
police
avec ces
forces in the
corps-là, la
province are in
GRC
partnership
et
with
les
the
employés de
RCMP
sécurité publique du
and
Nouveau-Brunswick. Nous,
officers from
à
Justice and
Dieppe,
Public
qu'est-ce que
Safety.
ça dit? Qu'est-ce que
Here
ça
at
veut dire? C'est qu'il y
Kodiak,
a
what does it mean for us?
agents
Well,
qui
it
sont
means that we have
recrutés au
two
Nouveau-Brunswick, puis
uh,
nouvelles positions qui sont
two
payées
new
par la ville du
positions
Nouveau-Brunswick.
paid for
Puis nous,
by the
à l'OPC,
province,
on a
two
intégré
new
4
RCMP members.
policiers.
So for
J'ai
a
déjà
total
2
of
agents de
4.
la
I
sécurité
already
publique
have my
présentement qui
2
sont
officers from
au
public
GRC,
safety, but
qui
I'm waiting
sont
for 2 more
postés dans
from
2
the RCMP.
départements à côté, à
They
Sackville et
are
Chediac.
they are
Ils devraient
posted in
arriver
Sackville and
dans les
Shediac
prochaines
currently, but
semaines
they
si
should
tout
be
fonctionne
arriving
selon les
here within the next come weeks if I'm
discussions de
lucky.
tous les jours
These
pour
are
arriver.
discussions I
Puis
have daily
d'ici
to
le
make
début de
sure they
semaine,
come,
d'ici
but
le
within the
début du
next few
mois,
weeks.
on va
Um,
pouvoir vraiment les
we
mettre
should be
à
able
l'œuvre.
to
Leur mandat est
put them
vraiment
to work,
spécifique.
and their mandate is
C'est
very specific. It's
leur approche est centrée
their
partage
approach is
d'informations, de
to share
prévention, aider les
information, to
policiers à
work
travailler contre
together, and to
les
work
drogues, les armes à feu et le
against
crime
drugs,
organisé à
organized
plus grand
crime,
niveau, parce qu'on a d'autres équipes
firearms,
dans tout le
because there's
Nouveau-Brunswick
other
qui
teams within New
ramassent sur les
Brunswick that
différents
really
niveaux. Fait que
focus
nous, on
on
veut vraiment
the different level of
mettre
those crimes, but we want
un
to
point
focus
sur qu'est-ce qui
on
se passe
what's
ici.
going on
On a
here
utilisé ces
in
4
our area.
corps-là juste
So,
pour ça.
so we've set up this team just for that.
Donc, le soutien opérationnel, qu'est-ce que j'ai
And
mentionné
then
avant?
operational
C'est des gens qui
support.
travaillent
I mentioned
avec
this
nous
earlier.
directement,
These are
qui
people who
travaillent
work with us
directement
every day.
avec
They
la
can
police.
work
Comme vous avez
anywhere
mentionné,
throughout the
certains
province.
policiers ont développé une
And certain
expertise
police
dans le
officers have
renseignement
developed a
vidéo ou
certain
le travail
expertise
performance.
in certain
Je
areas.
suis
For
un
example,
commandant
I'm
d'incidents
a,
critiques.
I'm a commander of
Présentement,
serious
j'ai des 3
incidents,
ou
and
5
I'm on
semaines que je
call
travaille là-dessus.
sometimes every
Pas
five
au
weeks. I can
Nouveau-Brunswick,
be
mais
called
quelque part
to
d'autre
go
part
anywhere
avec
in New
un
Brunswick or
critique,
PEI
avec un barricadier.
if there is a
Donc,
critical incident, if
c'est
there's
des
a
genres de
shooting or somebody's barricaded. So we have
vu
people
des
spread
déploiements
out
comme
that
ça
can come
au
as
moins dans les
needed.
2 3 ans depuis que je suis
If,
ici, quand on
I've
a
only
eu
been here for
mettons,
3 years, but
un appel
there was a call once
des coups de feu dans le parc
because there was
Centennial à
shooting, a
Ville.
shooting. The shots were
Devenu
heard in
une alerte
Centennial Park,
fausse,
and so this
mais
it ended up being a false
c'était,
alarm.
moi j'étais
But
impressionné
I
comment
was very
rapidement qu'on a
impressed
eu du monde
myself on
arrive pour
how
ce
we
jour-là. Dans une
received
heure de 30
assistance.
minutes, j'avais
Within
70
30
policiers
minutes, I had
à ma disposition
75
avec
police
tous ces
officers at
différents
my disposal
techniques
with
et
all of these different
spécialités-là.
techniques and specializations.
Donc, notre soutien administratif, voilà
And
les
administrative
88
support.
employés qui travaillent
So
avec
the
nous en
80
quotidien
and so
à la
some odd
GRC
support workers who
On a
work with us
des,
every day,
on a
this is
des
what
bureaux
they do. We
d'administration,
have an
on a
administration
des
office.
agents qui
We
travaillent à la
have
pièce de convention,
officers who work on the
le gestionnaire des
exhibits,
services
and we
financiers
have a
avec
financial
excellence,
services
avec
manager
41 ans d'expérience
who
aussi,
has 41
qui est
years
dans le trouble.
experience, and I think we'll be in trouble if we ever
C'est ma
lose her one
préférée.
day. She's my preferred
Service au comptoir en avant.
person. We have
Les
the
policiers,
staff
il
at
y a
the front
aussi un
counter. We
directeur
have
des
police
ressources,
officers, but we also have administrative
des
staff
gestionnaires
there.
des services de soutien
We
à la
have a
police et
policing
gardiens
support
seniors de
services
détention
manager.
qui
We
travaillent
have
avec nous.
prisoner holding cell guards as well.
Ensuite, d'autres employés qui font partie
And then
de
we also
ce
have
cadre-là.
other employees
Je les ai mentionnés
that
avant, c'est
work
l'unité de
in this
renseignement
group. Well, we
criminel.
have the criminal
Les
intelligence
analystes sont
unit.
essentiels
Our
pour nous
analysts
donner
are
des lieux
essential to
spécifiques.
give us
Souvent,
specific areas
ils
to
vont nous
target.
présenter
Quite
le genre
often,
de
they
map
will
avec les
give
points
us
chauds où ce qu'on doit
uh,
s'adresser.
an indication of the hot
En ce
spots
moment, les
where we
nouvelles
should
techniques qu'on va essayer, il y a
target.
4 équipes
And
de patrouille.
there are
On a
4
déjà des
patrol
lieux
teams. We're
spécifiques
going to
pour
give a
mentionner
specific area,
un carré
as
sur
I
la
mentioned.
map
We're going to give them a
avec
square, a
les chefs
grid on the
d'équipe pour
grid, and
qu'on
to
ait
each one of the
le point
teams
sur
so that they can
l'emploi
really
immédiatement.
pinpoint the
On va
problem to
essayer de
eliminate
l'avoir
it.
reprise
We've tried it 2 or
récemment.
3 times
Les
recently,
crimes ont été
and
de,
the
disons, 1
crimes
mois à
ranged
presque
from
zéro. Donc,
well, they
ça
went
fait que
from a large
probablement
number to
une des
almost
journées
zero.
qui va être à
So
Dieppe.
each of the 4
Donc, j'ai pas
teams
voulu dire le lieu parce qu'on va avoir des bons résultats, mais j'ai hâte
scheduled
de
to work in one
travailler avec
area, and one of
l'OPC
the
pour
areas will
préparer
be
la prochaine réunion.
Dieppe, and my colleague will be able to give you a report on this
Donc, cette
in
unité-là
the
aussi,
next weeks
il
to see
s'assure
how it's
qu'on fait
going.
tous les
Now,
suivis sur
this
toutes les autres équipes
unit
qui sont relâchées sur les
ensures
autres
the
sites.
follow-up on
C'est
people
des
who are released on bail or on
probations
conditions
ou des
for
libérations
probation
conditionnelles où on
or
va faire des vérifications
where
sur
we
les
have to
corps-là.
do checks quite often.
Ensuite, la station de transmission
And then we have
opérationnelle,
the
c'est déjà
operational
ici à Dieppe.
communications center.
Et ils
This
répondent
is
comme
in Dieppe.
employés
As you
aux
can
différents
see,
à des
they
appels
answer
de
911
211
calls, but not only
Ils
911.
répondent à
They
tous les
also
appels
answer
de sud
calls for southeast New Brunswick,
les services d'incendie de Moncton
including the
Riverview,
Moncton Riverview and
les
Dieppe
5
fire
autres
calls.
services d'incendie, puis
So
bientôt, avec
there's
la nouvelle
five
réforme, on
other
va avoir
fire
nos
stations, and
20
after the reform, we're going to
services
take over
d'incendie
another
ruraux.
20
Donc,
rural fire departments.
comme vous pouvez voir, il y a plus que 100 000 appels
So
par
there's
année.
over
Ça, c'est
100,000
des appels
calls per
911.
week.
Puis
Per
ça va aller du 911 à un
it's
crime plus grave,
from
juste
it goes
pour
from 911 for
vérifier
very
que
serious
savoir à quelle
crimes
heure que le
to
poste
somebody who
ferme
just
pour
wants to know what time the
le
station
téléphone
closes that
n'arrête
day.
pas de sonner.
Really, the phone doesn't stop ringing.
Nos gens qui travaillent avec les dossiers
Now
judiciaires
we have people who work with
sont
the court
le dossier,
records.
quand il est préparé par le
When a
policier, ensuite,
file is prepared by the
il y a
police
un collaborateur
officer,
qui fait la révision de tous les
and
dossiers avant les
we have an
déclarations.
officer who has to review the
Puis
whole file to make
ensuite,
sure that everything is
tout
filled out
est
properly,
préparé en
everything is, all
évaluation.
of the
On envoie
prepares are
ça
there, the papers, and then we send
en
it
matière
electronically
électronique au procureur.
to
Donc,
the
c'est plus comme ça
Crown.
c'était où on
So
apporte
it's
un
not
dossier pour
like in the
ah,
past where
c'est
we
quoi
would
l'envoyer électronique? Donc, c'est
give a
maintenant
paper
on envoie
copy and
ça sur
hand it over. Now
Teams
everything is
en
sent
informatique et aussi
electronically. So these
numérique.
people have to be
Donc,
very
comme je vous
familiar
dirais,
with
à chaque année,
computers
on a
and
entre
with
5
court
000 et 10 000
matters. We have
dossiers
between 5 and 10,000
qui,
court
en fait,
records to administer
ces gens-là
every
aussi
year. So
vont
that's a large number.
aux tribunaux
These people
pour
also go to
assurer
the
le
court
suivi de chaque dossier.
to ensure the
C'est
follow
vraiment
up, and
essentiel pour nous autres. Puis c'est des gens
they
qui
are
travaillent
essential for us. They work
très tôt le matin parce que,
early in
comme
the
je vous dis,
morning, and as I said,
il y a certains matins où ce
there are
que
certain
c'est toute une
mornings where
patente, où ce qu'on
uh,
doit tout passer tout le monde devant un juge.
everybody has to appear before court, and so there's long wait periods, and these people are very, very
J'ai juste
important to us.
certaines
So a
affaires
day in the life of a constable, I
c'est
just
assez
put a
relatif.
couple
Cette
of
année,
elements
moi-même,
here. It's really
j'ai
impressive.
célébré mon 20
Myself,
ans de GRC
I'm celebrating
au
my
mois
20th
d'octobre.
year,
Puis, v'là
or I
20
did
ans,
celebrate
j'étais
my 20th anniversary as
occupé
an RCMP
à
officer.
avancer mon corps de travail.
And when I
J'avais la
started
moitié de
20
l'équipement
years
que j'avais
ago, I
avant.
only had half
Puis,
of the
je
equipment
m'en
that we
allais
have
pour
to
me
wear
déployer
today.
avec
I would go to my
fièrement.
vehicle
Maintenant, quand on les voit,
with
c'est comme des gens qui
only
sont prêts
half
à
of this.
enlever le
The
reste de
people,
l'équipement
it's
pour s'en
when you
venir
see an officer go to their vehicle in the morning, it's like they're but ready to climb Everest. They have so much
les appels
equipment
d'entraînement
on them,
et
but a lot of
aussi
equipment means a
pour
lot of
travailler
training.
avec
So they have
les
to
différents dépendants. Qu'est-ce qui est
review
fait
and
en même temps?
receive training
Puis,
every 2 years for
je
certain
voulais juste
things.
rappeler aussi aux
And I
personnes, c'est
also
que
wanted to remind council
moi, les
uh,
attentes,
that as well
on
that
est, euh, on
there are
s'attend aux
expectations
résultats
as
de jour,
well
chaque jour
on
en plus.
results.
Le
There have to
matin,
be
on veut
results
s'assurer que tout
every
le monde
day.
soit
Every
visible,
morning,
qu'on
everybody has
soit
to
bien
be visible
informé
at
dans les dossiers.
lunchtime, at the end of the day,
En soirée,
in
de
the
voir
evening. It's
soit
dark,
vendredi, samedi, jeudi, peu importe le soir,
Friday,
on veut que les gens puissent
Saturday, Thursday,
donc
it doesn't matter what evening. We
la
want
raison
people to be
qu'ils sont en
visible
train de faire leur
unless they have
dossier
a
puis
good
préparer
reason to
ou
be in the office
s'ils sont sur le
preparing a
chemin en
file.
train de
If
patrouiller. Donc,
otherwise they're on
souvent
the
on
road,
dit
they're
on
out
voit
on
pas la
patrol.
police, mais
And quite often
quand
people
on
say,
est
well, we don't see the
regarder
police. But
game de hockey préféré en train
if
de faire la vaisselle ou quelque
while
chose de
you're
même,
watching your
c'est là que les
favorite
policiers sont en
team
train
or
de
you're
passer
doing the
puis
dishes,
on les
well,
voit
that's when they go
dans la grande
drive by.
avenue.
You might not see them, but they are there on the road.
J'ai juste une autre petite partie, puis après
I
ça, je
just
peux répondre
had
aux questions. Donc,
one small section left,
je
and
vais
then I'm
juste
open to your
mentionner
questions. I just wanted to mention
en disant ça, le
that
3 décembre,
on December
j'ai eu le
3rd,
plaisir de
I
sortir
had the
sur
pleasure
l'autoroute avec mes collègues de
of
travail le soir.
going
Je fais ça
out
de temps en
on
temps
the
quand
road
j'ai
with my colleagues in the evening. I
une
do it once in
soirée
a
santé
while
mentale.
when I
J'essaie
need a mental
d'amener
health
mes collègues de travail.
uh, session. I
C'était
go
du
out on the road with
national
my
journée
colleagues.
contre la
It
conduite
was the
limitée affaiblie, où ce qu'on
National
barre le
Evening
routier.
Against
Puis
Impaired Driving. So we
on
set
allait
up
dans les
roadblocks
écoles.
in the three
En décembre,
cities,
il
in the tri
faisait
communities. We had good
il a
results.
mouillé toute la nuit.
It
On a
rained
eu
all
des rafales de
evening,
50
and
km/h
there was wind
qui a
of
réussi à
50
arrêter
kilometers per hour, but we had good
plusieurs
results.
véhicules étaient
We
délaissés. Et
stopped a couple of impaired
on
drivers,
va continuer à
and
faire
we're
ça.
going
Puis
to
le dernier
continue
groupe
to work on
de
that. And the last thing I
célébration
wanted to
après qui
tell
s'en
you was
vient,
that the
c'est le
holidays are
temps
coming up.
de faire la fête, de
It's
s'amuser, mais
time to
avoir
go
un
out
plan.
and have
Si on
fun,
doit,
but have a
j'ai déjà dit
plan.
ça, mais je vais le
And I've
répéter.
already said this, but I'm
Si
going to
on va se
repeat it.
demander la
If
question,
you have to
êtes-vous
ask
capable de
yourself,
conduire?
should I drive? Am I able to drive? Well, then
Merci.
don't drive. Thank you.
Merci bien. Question de la part des membres du Conseil.
Questions from council?
Oh, Madame Boudreau.
Merci. C'est pas une
Councillor
question, mais
Boudreau,
vraiment
not a
un gros
question,
merci pour
but just a big word of thanks for your presentation. I think we can better see the different parts of the RCMP that the public or that even ourselves we were not familiar with. So this is very much appreciated. And I'd like to wish you and your team a happy holiday season. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? If not, once again, thank you. It was a pleasure to see you once again, and we wish you and your team a quiet holiday period. We know that that's not often the case, but that said, we'll wish you a happy new year because we won't see you before the new year, but thank you for your service. It's always very much appreciated. Yes, thank you. And for people who are going to the World Juniors, we will be present outside and in the area. So do stop to talk to us, chat with us. That'll be a pleasure for us. Thank you. Have a good evening. And as always, you're welcome to stay, but I have the impression that you might have better things to do. Which leads us to questions from public.
Please come on up to the microphone, identify yourself for the record. And
My name is Keith Carter. I am a developer in the city of Dieppe. I wanted to thank the mayor and the council for giving me the time to post some questions. As a developer, it seems to be taking a lot of time to get through the town hall with projects. As far as I'm concerned, and a lot of other developers, I've talked to 2 or 3 more, and they would like to have it that when you take a project in to have something done, that they find all of the problems so you can take it back to them once, not 4 or 5 times, because it all costs us money. And this is the thing. I was talking to you fellas at the Fox Creek golf course, and I don't think I have received enough information since, and that's why I came here, so that I could talk to Mr. Melanson and that, to sit down with him and his staff and get this straightened out some, or see if we can try to help the developers a little bit, make things flow through a little smoother.
Good evening, Mr. Carter. So sure, we had a good conversation a few weeks back. So and I thought it was resolved. I know we did follow up today. So I'll be gladly call you tomorrow and make sure that we have a sit-down meeting and see what's still up waiting and what's the reason. So we'll do a follow tomorrow for sure.
All right. No, because they were talking about a meeting on Wednesday or something. I don't know just what they're thinking. So anyway.
So
all right,
we'll make sure that the meeting goes as fine if it's Wednesday, and we'll see what's the holdup.
Yeah, no, not a problem.
Sometimes it's small things, sometimes it's big things. So
a lot of small things make big things.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't say it better than you did.
Okay, thank you.
And at the bank, it's only one thing, right?
At what?
At the bank, it's only one thing.
That's right. And that's when you have a lot of money invested, you like to get it back.
That's right.
You fellas all look for money.
We get that.
In the tax dollars. This is where you get them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alors, je vois pas d'autres personnes.
I see nobody else in the public. So are there any questions? Did we receive any questions online? If not, let's move on then to the adoption of the minutes of the last regular council meeting. Yes, it was the meeting held on November 28th. Who would like to move it? Moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. So the minutes of the meeting of last November 28th are
du côté de
Which brings us to item 10. Administration, Mr. Melançon, 10.1.1, ratification of various directives adopted at closed meetings. All right, thank you, Your Worship. And so periodically there are directives that are adopted at closed meetings. So we're going to do a series of them this evening. So before you, you have an amending agreement with Concorde Atlantique. So it's about ending this agreement once everything has been completed. So Concord will pay the city 180,000 to Dieppe. The city will proceed with the repurchase of the land identified under PID 703-935-74 for $77,813.78. And the city will not be repurchasing the land identified under the original agreement with Concord. And it's the number 705-49845. Concord completes the sale of the land, will complete the sale of the land, and they will be making a minimum investment of $2.6 million. The city will retain the option to repurchase the land if this falls through. The city will also not be repurchasing the land identified under PID 703-93566 unless, it's a minimum building permit of $1.5 million. And the conclusion of that transaction must take place by May 15th, 2022. So once all of those things are needs are meted, that will end the agreement between the city and Concord. All right, so there are 7 ratifications to be done. So one of the, we also have an agreement with the Global Pet Foods. So the city will be retaining its right to repurchase land, land identified under PID 703-93566. Global Pet Foods must proceed with the work required, otherwise the city can repurchase the land. And as I said before, there is a minimum value of $1.5 million, and the client must make extension payments if the work doesn't plate in the amount of $23,000 per year. So that's for Global Pet Foods. The third directive involves Plaza Corp property holdings. So it's the same situation here. There's a right to repurchase the land under PID 705-49845. Starting January 1st, 2023, 24, the city will be able to repurchase land. There must be a minimum building permit of $1.5 million, and there are extension penalties if the client does not meet the dates assigned to this development. So that's for the third directive. For the fourth directive, there is a memorandum of understanding that has been signed with IRCC, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. It's a federal office that set up shop in Dieppe. So the agreement began on November 1st, 2022. There are 2 renewal periods for 6 months each, and we're very happy to host this federal office in the city of Dieppe. 6 employees work in those offices. We have an agreement with Landmax Incorporated. And in January 2025, the city will have the option to repurchase the land if this client does not meet the conditions of the agreement. And this agreement was signed between the city and land max development. And then the last two items that we're making public today is we want to confirm the nomination of a director position for community development department. Denis Leblanc was named director, and there is also the director position of the environmental management department, and the individual who is appointed is Alexandre Truchon-Savard. So those are the 7 directives that we're making public this evening. Thank you for reading. So for that, to read the resolution, Councillor Brideau. Thank you. So that council ratify the directives adopted at closed meetings of the council concerning the following topics. 1, the amending agreement Concord Atlantic Incorporated adopted on April 11th, 2022. 2, signing authority development agreement with Global Pet Foods adopted May 24th, 2022. Signing authority development agreement Plaza Corp Property Holdings Inc. adopted June 27th, 2022. Signing authority, the Memorandum of Understanding with the IRCC adopted November 14th, 2022. Signing authority development agreement Land Max Developments Incorporated adopted November 28th, 2022. Appointment director position Community Development Department adopted November 28th, 2022. And finally, appointment director position Environmental Management Department adopted November 28th, 2022. So proposed by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Oh, was that a late aye? Oh, yes, I forgot Mr. Lanteng is working remotely. The motion carries as presented, which brings us now to item 10.2, community development. So a few weeks ago, the representatives from the CHU Dumont Foundations came to make a presentation before council, and they had asked for a partnership and financial participation from the city. So the recommendations, the following recommendation was based on that presentation. We're talking about $50,000 a year for a 10-year period. And this will be the 3rd contribution to a campaign. And so I present this to you for your consideration. And this is for the fundraising campaign Action Dumont. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Godette. Thank you, Your Worship. That council authorize an annual contribution of $50,000 to the CHU Dumont Foundation's major fundraising campaign entitled Action Dumont for a 10-year period beginning in 2022, and further authorizes this expenditure to be defrayed from account number 1-2-20-28-2310, General Operating Budget, Funding and Grants to Organizations. So proposed. Proposed by Councillor Godette, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion carries as presented. Now let's move to finance, item 10.3. I'm told that Mr. Stéphane Thériault has a presentation for us. Yes. So just to synthesize all of the transfers of the next 4 items. So Mr. Thériault is going to be making a presentation to clarify the amounts that are being transferred. Go ahead. I couldn't end the year without coming to see you one last time. So you're going to be seeing 4 resolutions that'll be presented to you, and they involve transfers there are 4 reserve funds, and I'll be talking about those funds. And the goal of my presentation is to demystify those amounts that are being transferred to or from the funds. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit more detail on this topic. So we see the general operating reserve fund. Now this fund is not supposed to exceed 5% of the previous budget. And the maximum is $3.1 million. And the amounts that we're dealing with are not that high. So we're doing small amounts to and from the transfer. So here we're talking about $330,000 to the reserve, and $230,000 is that is for a special project. And then $125,000 is coming out of the reserve. So, and for that, for the most part, we're talking about one-time expenses that were in waiting and that were carried out during the year. So so this amount is to pay for those funds. So there's contributions. So there are several projects involved in that amount. And then we have the general capital reserve fund, and there's no maximum. We can put as much in there as we want. So $6.9 million is coming out of the general operating funds and going to this capital reserve fund. The 6.9 million is made out of 3 programs. So the asset management program, the replacement program. So we've got about $1.2 million was used to purchase equipment. There are 2.5 left. Same thing for the operating capital, $2.8 million. We had a budget of $5 million. We used $3 million, and $2.8 million is left over, so we're transferring that to the reserve. And this includes projects like microsurfacing, for example. We had quite a big budget. Not all of it was used, so we're transferring the rest to the reserve for future years. And then the last amount, $2.8 million, an estimated surplus. At this time of year, that's when we determine how we're going to finish the year. And if we left that amount there, those surpluses will end up in 2024. So before the year end, we send this amount to the reserve so we have access to it. So this $2.8 million is made up of 2 things. There's a surplus, a salary surplus, $1.7 million. For the most part, this is vacant positions, and there are 2 reasons for that. These are positions that were opened at the beginning of the year that were not filled at the end of the year. So that creates a budgetary surplus. And then there's staff turnover. If somebody leaves before that person is replaced, that creates a budgetary surplus as well. So those are the 2 main contributors to that $2.8 million. And another reason is for students or for staff that's on sick leave. So it creates a surplus, and that's what gives this amount. The second transfer is $387,800 from the general capital reserve, and so to the fund. So there were projects that took place during the year, but we didn't come to see you for those transfers. So in this case, we're talking about 2 projects in particular. There is the completion of Book Street, which was worked on last year, and it continues this year. We didn't come to see you for this year because the amounts were already authorized, but the money is reserved, or it was in reserve. So we paid the expenses, but now we need to take money from the reserves. And the other problem is the IGA. It was a project that had been reserved. Most of the work has been done, and now we have to pay the bills. We have to transfer the amounts from the reserve. And then in the other case, it's the $1.145 million is the opposite. This is funds that we came to council to ask for, to pay developers or for the projects. And so at one point, for example, we came to see you for estimates for the intersection and at Acadie and Champlain. So there was a resolution that was passed. We transferred funds, and the amounts that weren't spent, we're putting that back into the reserve. So, and there are 3 or 4 projects like that. So this is money that you have approved through the year. It wasn't used for whatever reason, and now we're putting it back into the reserve fund. Now, for the other 2 other reserve funds, it's basically the same explanation. So the operational fund, we've almost hit we're almost at the maximum that fund can contain. So here we're talking about an IT project, $14,000 that we're putting into the reserve for that. And so there were 4 resolutions. The 5th resolution is a description of all the reserve funds, and you'll be able to see what's in the various amounts that I mentioned previously. And then finally, in terms of the capital reserve fund, this is amounts from water and wastewater that was not used and that we're putting back into the reserves. So we had an asset management project for $200,000. We've used a portion of it, and we're returning some of it. The operational capital, we used about $300,000. So we're transferring the rest back to the reserve. And then we had a surplus estimate of $1.1 million. And again, it's mostly salaries, because each salary, or most salaries, there's a proportion that comes from the waste and water budget. So this is amounts that we're sending back to the reserve at the end of the year. And then the last amount, $15,000, is from the capital reserve for water and wastewater. There was the book project, there was a general portion, and then there was a water and waste portion that we're putting. So this is stuff that we're putting back into the reserve fund. So that's kind of concludes my explanation about the amounts that are being transferred to and from the funds. Thank you. So who would like to read the resolutions? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $330,000 from the General Operating Fund to the General Operating Reserve Fund. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $125,000 from the General Operating Reserve Fund to the General Operating Fund. So proposed. Proposed by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Gaudette on the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The motion carries as presented. Next item. Well, Councillor Thibodeau, would you like to continue? All right. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $6,905,000 from the General Operating Fund to the General Capital Reserve Fund. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $387,800 from the General Capital Reserve Fund to the General Capital Fund. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $1.145 million from the General Capital Fund to the General Capital Reserve Fund. So proposed. Proposed by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Lantang on the question. Oh, sorry, it was Councillor Thibodeau who proposed the motion, and seconded by Councillor
Lantaigne.
Lantaigne.
Sur la question.
On the question.
Aucune question.
No questions.
En faveur de la résolution signifierait par un oui.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
La
Opposed.
résolution est adoptée telle que
The
présentée.
motion is adopted. Next resolution, that council authorize a transfer in the amount of $14,000 from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Reserve Fund. So proposed by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Brideau. On the question.
Aucune question.
No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries as presented. Next, that council authorize a transfer in the amount of $2,060,000 from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Reserve Fund, and that council authorize a transfer in the amount of $15,000 from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Reserve Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Fund. So proposed. Proposed by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Leboutier. On the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries as presented. Thank you. Which brings us to the next resolution. Mr. Thibodeau or Councillor Thibodeau? That council authorize the following commitments from the following reserve funds. So General Operating Reserve Fund, account number 7-4-20-12-8910. 1, emergency measures, 235,000. 2, snow removal, 350,000. 3, asset management program, 546,000. 4, stabilization reserve, 385,000. 5, administration incentive program downtown, 525,000. Planning and development, green fund, 122,000. Innovative initiatives, 100,000. Information technology, various software, $68,000. Tourism initiatives, $52,000. Facilities, sports and public fields, $50,000. Clerk's office, software maintenance, Laserfish, $42,000. Insurance potential claims, $25,000. Engineering global traffic plan 2040, $40,000. 2021 one-time expenses, transportation, mobile receiver to be replaced, $28,000. Leisure purchase of artwork, $50,000. Leisure sports hall of fame, $38,000. Communications downtown signage, $100,000. Public transit accessibility at stops, $40,000. 2022 one-time expenses, fire department purchase Zodiac engine, $15,000. 2023 one-time expenses, engineering purchase new GPS, $35,000. Facilities, trail signage, $30,000. Human resources, consultant, $10,000. Recreation master plan, $100,000. Planning and development, event for developers, $10,000. Planning and development, future expansion project, $50,000. Fleet electrification study, $40,000. Public transit, audio and fare system, $54,000, for a total of $3,140,000. Now, Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Reserve Fund, account number 7-4-20-12-8930. 1, stabilization reserve, $500,000. Equipment program information technology, $71,000. Potential claims, $25,000. Information technology, unforeseen expenses, $11,000. Clerk's office, records management software, $10,000. 2023 one-time expenses, effluent monitoring program, Transaqua, $15,000. New water master plan, $60,000, for a total of $692,000. General Capital Reserve Fund now, account number 7-4-20-12-8920. Asset management program, $7,228,000. Future land purchase, $2,385,000. Current capital projects, $3,299,000. Pending capital projects, $3 million, $3,730,000, $730,000 rather. Capital projects 2023 financing, $2,650,000. Capital projects uncommitted, $2,720,000 for a total of $22,012,000. And now water and wastewater disposal capital reserve fund, account number 7-4-20-12-8940. Asset management program, $940,000. Current capital projects, $815,000. Pending capital projects, $464,000. Capital projects, 2023 financing, $329,000. Yes, $329,000. And capital projects uncommitted, $1,900,000 for a total of $4,448,000. So proposed. I think you you deserve a round of applause for that, for all those numbers. So proposed by Councillor Thibault, seconded by Councillor Leboutier on the question, or the questions. Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a few notes, maybe for Mr. Thériault. For the general reserve fund, operating reserve fund, are there items there that have been there for more than 3 years? Are there old projects that are kind of dragging on? Mr. Thériault. Well, as you can see, I added the year in question that the projects were accepted. So most are from 2021, 22, and 23. The operating reserve fund is a fund for like snow removal, things that are on an. So these are kind of as needed projects. Those, so they're not projects that would be dragging on. Were there any projects from the list that were removed that had been there for a number of years, but that we didn't complete, or? No, most were from projects from 2022, one-time projects, and most of those were carried out, except well, there was one question where we didn't know if the motor was coming or the engine was coming before or at the end of the year. I put it there in case, but most from 2021 were one-time projects. All right, last projects. There are capital projects in waiting. Are there older projects in that fund or that reserve fund that have been there for more than 3 years? I don't have a list right here, but so for example, the market, there's $1 million. We don't know when that's going to take place, but we put a million on the table. And so that's a project that's kind of in waiting. Are there any projects that are more than 10 years old in that list? I don't think so. No, not really. Okay, thank you. Any questions? Any other questions? With no further questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say not nay. The resolutions rather than the motion, but so they carry. So next item. The next item is I'm a signing officer, so I would like to introduce our new Marie-Ève Godbout-Carroll, who joins the team and who began this morning. So welcome to the team. And we're now going to be changing the signing officers. So for the reading of that Councillor Donroy, that Yvon Lapierre, Mayor, or Ernest Thilbaudot, Deputy Mayor, and Stéphane Thériault, Treasurer, or Marie-Ève Godbout Carroll, Assistant Treasurer, are hereby authorized to sign all checks issued for and on behalf of the City of Dieppe. So proposed, all proposed by Councillor Turgeon Roy, seconded by Councillor Brideau. On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion carries, or the resolution carries as presented.
Monsieur Melançon.
Mr. Melanson, the next two resolutions are connected to a certain point. You know that in terms of urban mobility, we have a new director, Mr. Obi. So we have a lot of thinking to do about our whole transportation, public transportation, mobility, transportation, special needs. So in this case, we're recommending that you authorize the extension of the shuttle and on-demand public service, the public transit service agreement with Maurice Richard until December 31st, 2023. And the second would be to authorize the extension of the specialized transit service with the wheelchair guy until December 31st, 2023. And that'll give us time to think about it in depth and to then issue a request for interest and for proposals. So this is by mutual agreement, this extension of these two agreements. Okay, who would like to read the first resolution? Councillor Boudreau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize the extension of the shuttle and on-demand public transit service agreement with Maurice Richard until December 31st, 2023. And I so move. It's been moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question? No questions. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. Carried. And the next resolution, if you'd like to continue on, that Council authorize the extension of the specialized transit service agreement with the wheelchair guy until December 31st, 2023. And I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question? No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. It's carried as presented. We're now at item 10.5.1. Mr. Melançon, you have a directive in front of you on the artificial field turf. We had started construction project for the artificial turf field behind Mathieu Martin School, and that was given to Dexter Construction. During the construction period, they discovered some that soils that were not appropriate for compaction, for compacting. And so we had costs that have to be added to the project to compensate for that. So you have an amendment to this contract or to a directive received by council. And this would be an additional cost of 425,775 plus HST that would be added to the Dexter construction contract for a total of $3,242,115 plus HST. And this also in addition to the contract with CBCL Limited for an additional cost of 27,075 plus HST for a grand total of $129,850 plus HST. Once this discovery came about, and the site belongs to the province of New Brunswick, so we added for financial assistance from the Regional Development Corporation to come to look at the soil condition and to compensate us for us. We received confirmation that the province has agreed to pay $495,000 as compensation. And so they will it will compensate for the costs that the city is paying for this. The final contribution of the province in terms of this artificial turf field is $168,000. That was initially slated for the stands. No, $156,000. That was the initial contribution. This is to authorize the modify the contract and the city's contribution and to pay Dexter and CBCL. Thank you. And who would like to read this resolution? Councillor Brito. Thank you, Your Worship. That council authorized an addition to the contract with Dexter Construction for the artificial turf field construction project at the additional cost of $425,775 plus HST for a total of $3,242,115 plus HST. And in addition to the contract with CBCL Limited for said project, at the additional cost of $27,075 plus HST for a grand total of $129,850 plus HST, and further authorize that these expenditures be defrayed from account number 3-3-70-12-7614, the general capital budget artificial turf. And I so move, Your Worship. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Brito, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. On the question, Councillor Godbout. Thank you. I'm generally in favor of this resolution, but I'd like to better understand the governance structure that when we're advising council, when you have a development project, this construction project, and when you notice that there are additional amounts, fairly major amounts that need to be added to a project, what are the principles? How do you determine when you're going to present it to council, the timing for that? Councillor Godbout, when we discovered the situation on this field, we advised council at a private meeting, and we explained that we were going to apply for financial assistance from the province. Before we received a response from the province, we couldn't bring it here because it would have prevented us from getting any funding from the province. So after the signing of the agreement with the province last week, well, we now appear before you to add this to the contract. But once it was discovered, we did inform you last August. We informed you of the situation. That is the procedure that we use. In spite of the soil testing that had been done, there were areas that caused problems. Thank you. Thank you. It was just important that people understand how and when information is shared. Otherwise, it just seems that, oh, all of a sudden we have this and we heard this and we never followed up. So thank you for the information. Yes, excellent question. Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question on the additional costs. I know we had made, we tested the soil at 5 different areas. We had made holes in 5 different areas and the soil seemed fine. But when there is an RFP or a call for tenders, does the city assume the risk or does the contractor assume the risk? Mr. Bourque, do you have any more information on this? Well, I don't want all of the risk to fall back on the city. Normally, when you buy a car, for example, there's a warranty for a certain amount of time. Mr. Bourque, good evening. Good evening. If you allow, our consultant from CBCL, Martin Thériault, is here. He's online. And I think he's here. Yes, it might be, he might be able to explain the process and the soil tests that we did at the beginning. Yes. So when we did the tests at the beginning of the design phase, we noticed that there were areas that had this film on it, and these areas were flagged as a potential risk. And it's really when the heavy trucks drove on that surface, that's where it causes a problem, especially when the soil is wet. If it's dry, it's not so bad. You can dry on it, you can add the fill, you can minimize the risk. But you can't really know in advance what the conditions are going to be, what the rainfall is going to be. Is the water going to remain there? We can only see it once the trucks are on the property. So at that time, we identified the conditions and we advised that there could be problems, that there might be some areas where we'd have to replace the soil during the construction. And during the construction, we had an idea of what the risk might be. And there were a lot of areas that we were able to save, but others that we couldn't. And where we were able to use it, we did so. But so the way the contract unfolded, the contractor bids on an amount for cubic meter per ton of material. And this, for example, if we put it all on the contractor at the beginning by saying, well, we're not really sure, there might be more, there might be less, and the contractor would doubly protect himself. So in this case, it's just 1 cubic meter per cubic meter. The prices are more competitive and we can control it throughout the construction and minimize the costs along the way. That's the normal way that we control the risk. So we have quantities that are estimated for the whole project, and then you add a contingency amount. And if something happens, you have the money available to compensate for that risk.
OK, question, Monsieur Lantaigne.
Questions?
Merci, merci.
Councillor Lantaigne, thank you, Your Worship.
J'ai une couple de questions.
I have a couple of questions.
Le budget initial, là, le budget est 3,9
The
millions.
budget
Le
is
budget
3.9 million,
initial,
actually. The initial
c'était combien
budget was how
pour
much
l'avance?
for the field, and what was the contingency? The initial budget, and if I can find it here.
En d'autres mots,
In other words,
on est over budget, excusez-moi l'expression.
are we over budget? Well, the contingency was, well, there were other elements that were added to the project other than the risk. This was the risk based on the soil condition, but there were other elements that had been added. It wasn't risks, it was just addition. For example, the foundation and the extra fill that was necessary for the stands. The logos, the sound system, there was the storage area. So
Le contracteur n'avait pas
The-
été donné une contingency.
contractor wasn't given the contingency. It's the city that held the budget, and the contractor got his contract amount, but did not get the contingency. Well, that was my question then. It was more on the finances of the city. The initial budget for the field was how much? Was it 3 million, or how much was the initial budget? And now we're at 3.9 million. That's just, I'd like to know how much are the cost overruns? How much have we added to the initial budget?
Moi, j'ai le chiffre de mon côté, il faut juste le trouve.
Well, I'm looking. The initial budget was around 2.8 million, but did not include the stands. The stands are another 400,000. So we have, along with the stands and with the contingencies, we have about a million overrun, 700,000. My second point, I don't know if I'm the only one, but it's a little hard to follow, especially if you don't come from the world of financing and accounting. Every time we're presented with figures, there's additions, and it's when you try and do the math, it's really hard. And so next time, perhaps you could put it in a spreadsheet, in a table, where you would have the initial amount, the additions, the unforeseen expenses, to make it easier for us to follow to see where we started from and what has been the changes, what has been added. I know there's a little table at the end here, but it's all in paragraphs with figures here and figures there, and it's very hard to follow. Maybe I'm the only one. but it's very difficult and it really is quite confusing. It's hard to follow. So I was just wondering if there was a way, an easier way of presenting this in future. That's all for me. Thank you.
Bon commentaire.
Thank you. That was a good comment.
Madame Leboutier.
Councillor Louboutier.
Ben, c'est de la même envergure que.
Well, it's kind of the same thing as Councillor Lanting, and I think I brought this up past in the past too with projects that last a little bit longer and that are bigger in scope. It would be good. Now you have the same kind of system that you're using, but if we could know if we had a column that said what we approved, and then every time that you come back for an amendment, we could add another column, and then the last, and then we'd have kind of like the timeline of each project, and I think that would make things easier for everyone, and it would be quicker. So that's but it's great that this artificial turf field is great, and congratulations on that. But that's what I wanted to add. We're already seeing results with facilities for our young people, so it's good. No further questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion carries as presented. That brings us to the last item, 11.1, section bylaw A8, respecting the pension plan, specifically for fire department officials, I believe. Oh, sorry, that involves everyone. Okay, I saw a 1 instead of a 2. So who would like to read the summary? Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw A-8 2022, a bylaw of the municipality of Dieppe respecting the pension plan for the employees of the city of Dieppe. Pursuant to the authority vested in it by the Local Governance Act, SNB 2017, Chapter 18, and the Pension Benefits Act, Chapter P-5.1, the Council of the Municipality of Dieppe, duly assembled, enacts as follows. The sections and schedule of bylaw A-8 2022 remain unchanged from those set forth in bylaw A-8 2018, adopted on August 13th, 2018, except for the following amendments to Schedule A, entitled Pension Plan for the Permanent Employees of the City of Dieppe. 1. Change in classification for expansion Dieppe employees from Class A to Class B. And 2. Change in the name of the insurance company to Canada Life Insurance Company. So proposed, Your Worship, with the withdrawal of line 3, the referral to the unilingual anglophone title of the Firefighters Union. In support of the mention on the question. Councillor Gaudette. Thank you. Just a question. I don't know if this is the right time to ask it, but I agree with the change that was made, and I just have a question of the 3.5. Is the city going to make up the difference? It was 8 and then 11.5. That the city does not have any financial implication. That involves expansion Dieppe. Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion carries as presented. Of the summary of the bylaw. And now for third reading by title only, Councillor Godbout. Bylaw 8, 2022, a bylaw of the municipality of Dieppe respecting the pension plan for the employees of the city of Dieppe. So proposed, Your Worship, as read previously. Thank you. So proposed by Councillor Godbout, seconded by, once again, by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries as presented. And that brings us to item number 12, notice of motions. Nothing was received. All right, that brings us then to item 13, inquiries and announcements by members of council. I think we are going to begin with our remote councillor. Did he leave? Oh no, he's there. Thank you, Your Worship. I thought we lost you there for a minute. I was afraid. There's nothing, I don't have much to add. I just wanted to thank the municipal administration for another great year of work this year. A lot of things happened this year. So thank you to the team. And I would also like to wish everybody a safe holiday season. Take advantage of the time with your family and people who are close to you. So happy holidays to everyone. Thank you. Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to come back to the situation of the union of firefighters and the choice of their choice of a unilingual title for their union. I received an email from their president who confirmed the following to me. The unilingual name was deemed to be temporary, and there was no intention to exclude French from communications from the union. And when they join another union, they will make sure that the title will be bilingual. So I thank them for that. Now, unfortunately, the union did not accept my invitation to modify their unilingual English title. And I find that decision regrettable for a number of reasons. I wanted to bring it up. The union's approach is contrary to the city, which is supposed to be an Acadian and Francophone city. It would have been very easy and very cheap to change the title, and it could have been done very easily. So as a councillor, I just wanted to denounce that approach and to call them out. And it, you know, they don't name any of the Francophone members, and I think this conduct has to be called out. We're no longer, you know, in secrecy. So I would publicly like to say that this conduct is contrary to the interests of the advancement of Francophone community. And I'm convinced that I'm not the only one to think this way. And my experience in the last 2 weeks confirms that. So with the response that I received, I had a few thoughts. I wondered a few things, and I would invite, what's happening in our fire departments where when the firefighters themselves are not calling that out, there's a certain complacency that seems to be setting in. So I just have questions about it, and I think we need to ask questions as well. When we're the ones who have to call out that conduct and not the members themselves who are doing it. So my invitation 2 weeks ago, I would invite the city officials to invite the union to change their name to a bilingual name and to better align themselves with the mission of the city. And I would invite the city as well to talk to look into seeing if there are not language issues that are taking place in the fire departments. I think it's important that we do that when we see incidents like that. But other than that, I don't want to end with a difficult subject. We had we had a difficult year. I really want to congratulate all staff. Thank you to the residents for their participation in the various activities. We're very proud of our city. I represent the city on a number of boards that are in the 3 municipalities, and I'm always proud to represent Dieppe. People always talk well about Dieppe, and so I want to wish everybody a great end of year and a good new year as well. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, your worship. Now, this week I attended an official opening, the official opening of the Café Inclusion or Inclusion Cafe. And every time I go there, I'm impressed by this organization. We're very lucky to have them in the basement of the La Maison Doiron or Doiron House. So we also had the first edition of the Christmas market in Doiron House, and it was very impressive, I can tell you. There was a really festive ambiance. There were great decorations. It was decorated in kind of old Christmas style. I spent quite a bit of money there, but it was really well done. And what I heard from residents was, and this is something that I would suggest too for maybe next year, to extend this over a number of weekends. It gives us a chance to go and visit the house and to get a good coffee as well at the Inclusion Cafe. So hats off to the organizers. It was really well done. Also, this was quite a busy weekend for the board, or for the council rather. We met with Expansion Dieppe, and I also participated. Things are moving in economic development and in the arts and culture sector in Dieppe. And I would like to take advantage to thank the volunteers and the directors of these organizations. So your dedication and your commitment to our community are really making a difference. So a sincere thank you to you. And I also don't want to miss the opportunity to wish happy holidays and a happy new year to our residents, and thank you once again, as Councillor Godbout said, thank you for your involvement in our community. It's thanks to you that this place is a great place to live. So have a good week. Councillor Thibodeau, thank you, your worship. First of all, I want to wish happy holidays to all residents. And at the same time, I want to take advantage to wish Councillor Lantang happy birthday. I want to take that opportunity. Thank you, Councillor Thibodeau. I also want to say that I have a message for the council. There was a citizen who approached me who was very happy about the budget that we voted. He told me that he was very proud of the work that we do, and he wanted me to share that with my colleagues. And I think it's a combination of the colleagues, the work done by my colleagues, but also the city staff. They prepared. We had a budget that was well prepared and well presented. That's all for me. Thank you, Councillor Thibodeau. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, your worship. Well, first of all, I would like to congratulate my colleagues from the city of Dieppe, your worship as well, for the work that is done. People are telling us that things are going well in Dieppe, but it's because everybody rolls up their sleeves and chips in. So I personally would like to wish everybody to happy holidays in Dieppe. We're staying here in Dieppe, and thank you, a special thank you to all our staff. The snow is coming, so we're going to be seeing them out on the streets clearing the roads and the sidewalks. And there will be a water break somewhere. We hope we don't have any, but that it always happens. There are always accidents that happen. But I would like to personally wish you a Merry Christmas. Thank you, Councillor Brideau. Councillor Boudreau, thank you, Your Worship. Tomorrow is our Remembrance Day, Acadian Remembrance Day, so we remember people lost in the deportation or shipwrecks. There are 850 people died between December 2012 to 2016 in the past or at the time of the deportation. And me too, it's the end of the year. I wish you happy holidays. Happy holidays to city staff. A big thank you for all the work that you did this year. I'm really happy to be part of a city is making progress in a number of areas, and it's thanks to you and your knowledge that our visions are being implemented. And welcome to the new director. There are new employees who have just been added. Jérémy Aubé, Marie-Claude Landry, Alexandre Truchon-Savard, Denis Leblanc, Marie-Ève Godbout, Carol, and all of the others who recently joined or joined the ranks of the city. To my colleagues around the table, thank you for your dedication, for your discussions. Thank you for taking time to ask questions. Thank you for the positive environment that we have here. And I would also wish happy holidays to everybody listening to us online and to all residents. I hope that you spend that your holidays are safe and that you spend it with loved ones. So happy holidays. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Ben,
Councillor
pareillement.
Le Boutier, thank you. Well, I would like to also thank all of the staff members here to have a good holiday period, rest up. It's been a very busy year for you, especially because I mean we just come to meetings here and we vote, but you do all of the work. And, it's through the great leadership. It's very pleasant, and as we say often, we're very lucky at all different levels of our city, our staff, our residents, our business people, our developers. I wish you all a great year, and all of the best in 2023. Councillor, Councillor Godet, yes, likewise, I would like to wish happy holidays to everybody, to the citizens, the residents of Dieppe, your worship, councillors and staff, and we'll see you in 2023. So, well, there's not much left for me to say. It's all been said. And no, I just want to add that I want to thank all of councillors, all of council. We make a great team. I have a few years of experience sitting in this chair, as you well know. And we're lucky here in Dieppe to always have people who come and help us develop our community with the best intentions for our community and with all of our staff as well in all fields. We're really lucky, including our firefighters, except for that little language um, issue that escaped us over those years. And thank you for having raised it, Councillor Godbout. But again, and to you and your families, have a great holiday season, and we'll see you perhaps in somewhere here in City Hall. But it's for some of you, but for most of you, we'll see you in January next year. Have a wonderful year, 2023.